Okay, so we're now recording. So welcome everybody to this public webinar on drivers. Oliver and I have run a couple of these sessions in the last couple of weeks with some of the Crestron sales staff. And really, since our drivers platform, our driver store launched a couple of weeks ago, we got lots of requests from people about how do we get your drivers for demo? How do we show them off? How do we start including them in our projects? And how do we show them to our customers? So we decided, rather than doing as much as nice speaking to all of you individually, we thought we'd try and group you all together into some of these webinars and just show you a little bit about what we're doing, what's going on in the driver development for Crestron Home, and in general in Crestron drivers. So I got together, I've been working quite closely, although we're two separate businesses. Oliver and I have been liaising and helping each other out in this world of driver development. And so it seemed to make sense that we kind of tied together and talk about our different catalogs. I'm a Crestron services provider based in Edinburgh in the UK. I work with a small team here. We work on custom Crestron projects mainly for the commercial environment, meeting rooms and boardrooms and things. We also work on software development projects, but this venture into very small modules is a new one for us. It's something that we've kept an eye on through the development of the Crestron SDK, when things were kind of tried to start coalescing together into a formal driver structure, and we kept an eye on it, and we got involved properly about 6 months ago when we started looking into the advances that have happened with Crestron Home, and really the requirement that Crestron Home has to get a lot more of us involved in driver development so that we can get things that are not currently supported onto that platform available and onto the Crestron Home platform. So I say that's myself. Oliver, let you do a quick intro for yourself and automation.
Thanks, Neil. I'm Oliver Hall. I was a CSP, but then we moved back to being a normal integrator. So we do projects and development work. My background is more sort of software development stuff, though. So it's more natural for me to be in that sort of side of things than drilling holes through walls and pulling cables and stuff. So we've done drivers for different things for Crestron for quite a while now. It's all started off kind of on the back of drivers that we needed to do for projects anyway. And then we started making them available for sale to other integrators. And then when Ping happened, and RAD as it was originally sort of was a thing, that seemed like a natural progression for us to take the drivers that we already had and try and repurpose them for the new platform. Since then, CCD's kind of expanded into a lot more, sort of a broader spectrum of things. So now we can use extension drivers and platforms and stuff like that, which sort of opens up a whole new world of drive development. So we've been pushing on with that. So a lot of our drivers started off in the older sort of style of driver development, which was things like set-top boxes and displays, the more sort of traditional models. And then we started to move into extension devices when they became available. And hopefully the sort of things will start to come back into being first-class citizens within Crestron Home as well. So with extension devices, perhaps getting capabilities that allow them to integrate more fully into the Crestron Home UI, then the gap will start to narrow again. So yeah, so we're doing extension devices. We've done a couple of platform drivers now as well. And we've got a security system that's kind of in the pipeline. And that's where we're up to. Back to Neil.
Okay, thanks, Oliver. So what we wanted to do today, as I say, when I started getting requests of how do we get this for our demo system, how do we work amongst your licensing, I thought what I really wanted to do was, before giving the Crestron sales guys and maybe your sales guys or you guys these demo licenses, I really wanted to talk you through how we anticipate our initial catalog of drivers being used, especially as Oliver says, some of the drivers that we've developed day one are not a traditional driver in the sense of they allow you to control a certain piece of hardware in a specific way. The UI tiles concept, if you like, that came about really with Crestron Home 3.4 or 5 when the events and sequences came in. allowed us to think about just creating a small driver that is essentially just giving you an additional piece of user interface. So making something look more to your end user like contextually the thing that they expect it to be. So I wanted just to show how we anticipated those to be used and what different things they might help with. So we've got a little demonstration of that. We've also invited a guest, a UK integrator, Durgesh Singh from Nucleus AV in London to let you know about a couple of the tiles of ours, a couple of drivers that he's got in use on his demonstration system. Another little use case. So we do have drivers in our range which can control hardware directly, but we've separated those things out so that those are hardware interfaces. So the first use case we go through just talks about how we can hook up some UI with a third-party hardware. And then the second use case is looking at another kind of common scenario where you might want to use a UI tile along with some native hardware within Crestron Home, be that lighting, Crestron lighting, be that Crestron shades, be that a relay or something, a control item within Crestron Home. Oliver's going to talk a little bit about some of his drivers. We've got a little demo of our notification driver for Crestron Home, a push notification driver. And then we just talk a little bit about our licensing and how to go about getting some demo licensing for your showrooms. So first of all, before we get into all those demos, Oliver and I thought it helpful to talk a little bit about where we see things where we see things at the moment in the driver world. It's interesting, obviously, that you still got me. My camera has frozen, but hopefully you can still hear me okay. In the driver world, it's really very much for Crestron Home in its infancy. There are, in terms of the driver portal, there's only 4 or 5 developers currently listing on there, and it's really a very new thing. And although Crestron has a good-sized catalogue of drivers, some 1,500 drivers on the portal, there's obviously, and I know Jason's on the call somewhere, I don't know exactly what his hopes are for the next 6 months, but I think we can hope that some of the quantities of drivers on there increasing over the next 6 months and that really going up. But really, in terms of the exposure of these third-party drivers to your systems, to your customer systems, and the tools that they give you, it's all a very new thing. It's been really interesting to interact with all of you on social media around the different things that introduces. It introduced cost. It introduces responsibility in terms of, you know, where does the support lie for a third-party portion of the system in amongst so a Crestron produced driver within that software. So we thought it useful just to talk to that a little bit. And really, there are different models, of course. And we have seen the parallels from other control systems that have developed their third-party driver catalog over the last numbers of years. We've seen parallels there, different models whereby the manufacturer of the control system makes the drivers in the Crestron catalog we see just now. Manufacturers engage us as developers to either make them a driver or at least help them to make a driver for their stuff, for their kit, so that they can make that available to a wider market or to a platform. And then there's also, as driver developers, we can bring things to the market that we feel will be useful and put them out on a per cost basis. And I think there's even, I've mentioned it, the slide at the end there, there's also some drivers where we've seen in other platforms, and I could anticipate Crestron Home getting there, where your homeowner themselves might want to add something to the system some point down the line. And hopefully we get to a point in time whereby there is an ability to do that. So a driver might not be a constituent part of a fundamental day-to-day activity, but might be a nice to have that an end user adds onto the system there. So we wanted to talk to those things and hopefully hopefully have a little bit of time at the end to answer any questions. I did mean to introduce 2 other people who are on the call. Sophie, who's been emailing you out invites if you didn't get them. Thank you for your help, Sophie. Also, one of my other guys, Kalichi, is kicking around on the call and somewhere, and he's going to try and respond to any questions that you have in the chat window, and bring any to my attention that we can kind of include. And if we get some time, we might answer some questions in the Q&A as well. Oliver, do you have anything you wanted to talk about at this point?
Not right now. I'm happy for you to carry on, Neil.
Thank you very much. So as I say, Oliver and I have been kind of helping each other out, but we are two separate companies, both based in the UK. We've got quite different catalogs, but we both have kind of catalogs up there, a mix of purchasable drivers and some manufacturer produced drivers, but the majority of our drivers are all drivers that you can purchase for a site-wide license for use on a system. Once you've purchased that site-wide license, you can install one or many of those drivers on that particular system. So I wanted to go straight into a first little kind of demonstration, or it's a little bit of a cheat because I'm going to show you a video of it instead. But I wanted just to look at the first usage of a user interface tile. Now we have a selection of these user interface tiles. We've got a number of them for doors and locking scenarios, garage doors and gates. And in this first example, I just kind of picked I actually picked a gate tied together with a piece of hardware, a piece of third-party hardware from one of our hardware interfaces. So one of the things we identified with the help of Durgesh at Nucleus was a requirement for some better integration with the 2N door station to make sure that we could use that without having additional hardware to open the door. Obviously, the 2N gate station has kind of native a native portion in Crestron Home, whereby it has the workflow by which it can raise a SIP call to a TSW panel. And then the user can act on that call, verify who's at the door, and use a quick action to open that up. So previously, we had to add some additional hardware to that. We had to get a relay connected to some Crestron native kit to enable us to do that. So we've added a hardware interface driver that you can purchase for Crestron Home today, which will communicate with that 2N device over the network and allow you to control the relay and the I/O portions of that device. So I'm just going to use we've got a small YouTube channel where we're just adding kind of technical videos to that, and we're trying to do there's obviously some kind of little explainer videos for homeowners if you want to show them what kind of things what our drivers look like, but there's also some kind of more technical videos which are quite dull and boring, but just give a really quick and efficient way to explain to you how we're tying these things together. So in our kind of Crestron Home driver tech, we have a number of videos just explaining those different things. So we have 2 seconds. So UTI tile and hardware interface. Now I'm just going to mute down the volume on this because we've got a little trick here where we're going to speed things up, as I'm sure you've all done looking at Masters videos in preparation for next week. So what we've got on the screen here is I've got a camera showing our 2N hardware. I've got the Crestron Home setup app, and I have our user interface so we can see what's going on. And I'm just adding a 2N gate hardware to the system. I'm not licensing it for the purposes of this demonstration, but in the user attributes for the demo, I'm just putting in the IP address of the 2N device. Our driver supports no authentication, basic authentication, or digest authentication. So in this instance, I've just put in an IP address because we're just talking to it. Now, our hardware interface tiles provide some user interface, but this user interface, as I describe, is really, I've hidden it in the rack room in this particular instance, and is really just designed to be a commissioning tool, if you like. It allows some very basic, not very pretty function, which just allows us to test the fact that we can control the hardware on this particular device. Obviously, in this instance, it's a reasonably simple device. It's got the nomenclature on the 2N is it has switches, switch on, switch off, which are configurable, and it also has a an I/O input, which we're monitoring via the driver, and we can bring that into Crestron Home as well. So at this point, effectively, we've connected our hardware, and we've tested that we have a connection from our driver out to the third-party hardware. So I'm now going to go and add in a user interface tile. The user interface tile is right at the bottom of the list in Crestron Home, and there's not other people doing UI tiles as well, so you'll find others in there, but at the moment it works quite nicely for us because there's a category in there. You can find our stuff quite easily, and you can also use the search functionality to find the driver that you like. So what I'm doing here is adding in the UI tile. Now this is something a little bit prettier. This is a user interface tile that has the right thing. We want to show this to the customer. It's something that's giving them a contextual view. Because this is a UI tile, we're not connecting it to any third-party hardware at all, and we don't need to put in any IP addresses or credentials or details, because this UI tile on its own doesn't connect to anything. It just talks to Crestron Home. So the UI tile for this particular one has, like most of our drivers, it has a password protected advanced settings section where you've got a couple of credentials and things that you can set up, where you can, for example, in this particular driver, you can set up whether it's a latching or whether it has an auto close, and there's some details around the time that it takes to open and close the gate, so that you can tidy up that functionality and make it more appropriate. There's also a toggle checkbox on all our drivers to allow you to show the home tile in addition to the room tile, and then also some licensing user interface, so that you can look at your licensing status, change licensing, and what have you. So if I move on a bit in the video, now we've got just two drivers on the system. Apart from looking pretty, our gate driver doesn't do very much at the moment, and obviously we need to make that do something. So in this instance, the first thing we want to do is we want to tie up the I/O interface on the 2N. That might be connected to a gate sensor, which is sensing whether our gate is open or closed. So this presents in the actions and events, presents a couple of events to the system, input closed and input open. And we're going to tie that up to an input effectively on our UI tile, so that we can inform the UI tile of the current state of the gate. So we're simply taking the event and pushing that action to the UI tile. We're going to do the other way as well. So when the UI tile is open and closed by the user pressing on the actions on the UI tile, that needs to go off and tell our hardware that we want to actually open or close the gate. So on this side, the UI tile is presenting a couple of events. It's presenting a do close gate and a do open gate. In this instance, because we want to tie it up to a third-party hardware, we can find that third-party hardware, our 2N gate, and we're going to tie it up to the switch on and switch off in this particular instance. So if you really want to go back and look at that much more slowly, speed okay, Oliver? Talking too quickly, or all right today?
Sorry, I was muted. No, that's good.
So I've got some of these live on the systems, on our systems here as well, that we can go into more detail. But that was our first example. So that's tying UI tiles to third-party hardware. There's a couple of little nuances in terms of how we're tying UI tiles to native, but effectively it's a very similar thing, really, and we'll go back into that later. Any questions raised on the chat for that, Kalichi, that we need to go into just now before I pass over to Durgesh to show us a couple of things on his system there?
No questions.
Cool. I love this little emulator I use has me with a
There is
little
one.
crown on it. I would
Can you
really
hold
like
the
to move
gate
that.
open, Neil?
Can you hold the gate open? Yes, you can. So yes, you can. We talked about that a little bit last week in terms of the native hardware, didn't we? Because some of the native hardware has momentary relays. So we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the native relays. But yeah, all of the gate tiles that we offer, you can either make them latching or momentary, yes. So we don't have a slide for poor Durgesh, but Durgesh, you're going to share video rather than sharing content. So I probably stop my share while we let you show us your bits and pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. Hope you're okay. So we're going to try and do a live demo for what we have running here. So I've been using both Neil and Ollie's drivers from the first time that they released them, with great success from both of them. So it's been great. For us, it's really allowed us to evolve what we can do with Crestron Home and start to bridge that gap of what we could do with Crestron Custom. So I'd like to show you two that we have running here very successfully. So one of them, I'll just switch my camera around. Here's the iPad. So previously, something simple like sprinklers. So here's my user interface on the iPad. Previously, what we had is we had a Crestron native box providing contact closure, just closing 24 volts for a sprinkler relay. Now, all I could do on this page previously was give a quick action that said sprinklers on, sprinklers off. Then that could be between radio, outdoor landscape speakers, everything else. It just all gets muddled into one stream of quick actions. And using Neil's driver here, his tile, which is a sprinkler driver, we have basically tied up that with the original Crestron IO. So to do that, we have required 3 elements to add into Crestron Home. I'll just flick over here. So everyone's quite familiar with their add devices, pair devices page. So we have the first device, which is your actual Crestron IO box. You then, second step is you create sprinklers. This is built into Crestron Home. It's always been there, but all that allowed you to do was basically connect contacts up, say they were momentary or pulse, and then put them onto quick action. And then by adding the third element, which is Neil's UI tile, that then allows you to present sprinklers as a proper little tile on your thing. And what we'll try now, quite dangerously, is to give you a demo of that. So if you can see the garden here, and I'll try not to get wet. Put that down and click on that. You'll see here that little sprinklers pop up in the garden and start watering the garden. I don't know if you can see that. And then you simply go here and it says sprinklers are on, sprinklers running. Tap that again. You see them disappear off in the garden. And you know, that level of, that is just using a normal Crestron product, contact closure, really simple. But what we've gained in terms of user enrichment of using it is massive compared to just having a quick action that said, you know, sprinklers on, sprinklers off. The other one that we have running is the A10 driver for rebooting sources. This is something that I'm sure everyone contends with. So what we've done is, if you go into, I put them all into the rack room. So is that off? It's AV rack. So what I've done is, you've got the tile here, which would let you drill down to every single output on the A10. But what you would want to give your client is just, you know, you don't want him rebooting network switches and Crestron processors. You can just then give him the quick actions for the ones you want. So for example, you've got reboot Apple TV. Up here, we have Apple TV running. Simply tap that and you can see it's rebooted. And in a second, you'll see the Apple logo come back as it reboots. We'll wait a few seconds before it obviously turns on.
Dangerous demos.
Dangerous demos. There you go. You can see the NVX has done the handshake up there, and there's your Apple TV back again. So, you know, those two things, before Neil's tile, just switch your camera around, before Neil's tile, we had actually had to have a second processor, write a load of simple code in the second processor to bridge the gap between the A10 and Crestron Home, and have a whole second processor just to provide triggers and listens to allow that same functionality. Now we can simply just add the A10 driver and tile and achieve that. So it does allow you to move your Crestron Home installation to the next level. I hope you guys have all enjoyed it.
Thank you, Durgesh.
My pleasure.
So what we wanted to do next was we had another example. Now this example we do have up on a video on the website that you can take a look at, and there was a question about recording. We are going to record this session itself as well, so we will send out this session so that we can take a look at it as well. What I want to do though, I'm going to mix it up a bit. Oliver, would you mind if we jump to yours because I seem to have logged out of my Crestron setup app, and so would you mind if we just flip around a little bit and jump across
You're going to ask me to host the slides.
Would you mind? No, we can do. Yeah, you're true, because if I host the slides, then I can't go and fix my desktop, can I? Don't worry if it's not handy. That's
One
okay.
second, just getting it up now.
Da, da, da. I'm probably good to go if you want, Oliver, actually. Well done.
Have I done it?
You have. Well done. Well done.
Hold on. I've got to try and unmute myself permanently. Right. There we go.
So thanks for swapping those two around, Oliver. We'll go back to me in a minute.
So hang on, do you just want me to talk about what we're doing?
Yeah, can you just do
I mean
2 slides? Yeah, you do have a specific slide for it. 3 slides on if you want. Yeah, one more. There we go. That's you.
Okay, right. I mean,
Thanks for that.
Anyway, so you're gonna have to get yourself rebooted pretty quickly now. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm probably going to repeat what I said right at the beginning. We started off doing drivers on the more traditional side. So whereas Neil's drivers focus primarily, I mean, most of them are extension devices. We started off with the standard CCD device types, which are kind of gradually growing. And again, I think Jason probably has designs to expand the collection of supported types, or there might be alternative approaches to doing that. But we started off with things like AVRs and displays and things like that. Then when extension devices came out, we started doing that kind of thing. We have our own little box of DMX tricks. So that was the natural choice for me to do a driver for that, so that we could start introducing that into Crestron Home, so that provides a DMX sort of device capability within Crestron Home. They don't actually appear as a light in the sort of Crestron Home traditional lighting sense. Extension devices do sit off to one side a little bit, but hopefully things will change there as well, and we'll be able to kind of integrate these things more fully. We did another lighting system, which is called Rayco, which is popular in the UK, and you get a kind of almost like a virtual keypad there. I know Durgesh has had some success with that, and you can also do sliders for level control and things like that. Future automation, we did one for the mechanical stuff, so that's like Neil's drivers, that allows you to integrate with TV lifts and things like that, and set them, you can fire off commands using sequences so that you can automate things like that when you have media scenes and stuff. The one driver that we've done that was manufacturer kind of led was the Gouda PDU. So it's like Neil's A10 one. We did the one that TIG, which is the one of the distributors in Europe, that used to be the kind of Crestron, or is the Crestron distribution sort of channel. They also have this product from Gouda. So that was one of the very few drivers that we've done as an actual kind of commission for a manufacturer. We'd prefer normally to stick to the selling drivers sort of on a case-by-case basis. I mean, that's the business model that Neil and I have kind of favoured. I know it isn't the most popular with everybody, but from our point of view, it makes more sense for us to try and recover. We do the driver development effectively free at our own cost, not free of charge to the manufacturer. And then we then try and recover the cost of the development through incremental sales. And I'm hoping that it's realistic to have that sort of wrapped up into the cost of a Crestron Home project. And it isn't too much of a sort of barrier for people. I know there's mixed opinions on that. AV switches came along after towards the end of last year as well, so we jumped on the bandwagon there very quickly to try and kind of capture the low-hanging fruit there. So we've done quite a few AV switches already. There are still quite a few out there that aren't covered. They tend to be the ones that are a little bit more challenging from an API point of view, but there are still lots of AV switches that could be incorporated into Crestron Home. I mentioned the security device that we're doing. We're doing a thing for a product called Orisec, which is a sort of spin-off from people that used to work for a company called Texacom, which was a security system that was very popular in the UK. Orisec is kind of picking up where Texacom have started to sort of fall behind a little bit, I guess. And there are some security systems. I think ELK has already been done by one of the developers in the US.
Digital automation.
That's it. Now, I think their approach at the moment was to use an extension device sort of model for the security system.
Oliver,
yeah,
I think you're just about to answer this question, but I'll just prompt you so that you make sure you do. So there was a question around that, around another alarm system, and asking if there was if it's something we might have in the pipeline. I think you're about to answer that question around where you are with security systems at the moment.
Yeah, so we're working on Orisec. That's the only security system I've got on my list at the moment. I know there are plenty, because I know there's some guys in France that are very keen to get one of the French sort of popular security systems. Seem to be quite sort of regional, because I guess there are different standards and things like that. But security systems has been one of the driver types that's been a bit more challenging to develop. But things are moving in the right direction there. So we'll hopefully get Orisec out in the next few weeks, perhaps. And then we can turn our attention onto other ones. But at the moment, that's the only one I'm looking at. So what was the question? Was it?
Well, I think so. The question was on Ulsys.
Yeah, yeah.
QUlsys, maybe it's pronounced.
Yeah,
so yeah, and so I thought that general answer around, yeah, once we get over the line with these first couple, with a couple of challenges, then
in terms of complexity, fundamentally, no, they're not actually that much more complicated than writing an AV driver, and it all depends on the protocol that you're writing, the device that you're writing against. The challenges we've had with the Crestron Home side of it was more just understanding how to make everything sort of fit together and play well together. So it's just been a process of kind of iteratively working through that development process to make sure that we are doing things in the correct way, because obviously there's quite a lot of hooks into Crestron Home for security, probably more than, well, they're different from an AV sort of routing scenario. So there's a few more event handlers that you need to worry about and things like that. And some of the things that didn't work weren't immediately obvious why they weren't working. So that's why things have been a bit slow for us on the security systems, but things are very, very much in a better place now. We actually, Neil and I had some sessions with some of the developers at Crestron, and that answered a whole load of questions that we had. So definitely going in the right direction. Crestron, hang on a sec. Oh, Jason's answering the one on whether Crestron are going to write that driver. Anyway, moving on from security systems, just platform devices. That's the one that I've been focused on more recently, and we've now done 2 platform drivers. One for Silent Gliss, which is a shading manufacturer based out of Switzerland, I think, but very big in the UK. And Philips Hue, which I'm hoping will be a big one. That came out, we only released that at the beginning of the week. So Philips Hue is now a fully supported device in Crestron Home. I mean, again, it's still a tile. It doesn't appear as a light bulb, as it were. I mean, it is a light bulb, but it doesn't fit into the Crestron Home lighting model. But you get all of the control that you'd want for a Philips Hue bulb or lamp or group. You can do switches, so you can do Philips Hue plugs and things like that as well. So that's quite an exciting one for us. And that is me, I think, Neil, is it?
Yeah, just one thing I was going to mention on the, yeah, you need to go back one because I put us out of order. One thing I wanted to mention in terms of the security system drivers, as you mentioned, Oliver, they are quite regional. There's lots of manufacturers, and that is a real challenge as well, because it does mean that the market that we're developing for is smaller by nature of there being loads of them. So that can cause challenges, and that's because ultimately to make a drive, unless a manufacturer is pushing really hard to make a driver, then it's a commercial decision to go and make one. So that's just, they're a good example of that, aren't they?
Yeah.
So yeah,
all of these messages that are coming through, you know, with people saying I like this and I like that, they all get collected up. And I mean, I know Jason's answering a couple of those kind of things, but Neil and I both actually have our own respective lists, and we also actually have collated a shared list between us of who's working on what, so that we try not to step on each other's toes too much. So yes, we do look at all of these things. Philips Hue, RGB, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's, yes, Philips Hue, you do RGB, ambient lights, monochromatic ones, so brightness and switches. And you can do the RGB ones, you can do hue, saturation, brightness, and the other thing, color temperature. There we
go. Great. Okay. So, so if I share my screen again, let me know when you can see that. Okay. So, so the second demo I wanted to do was very similar to the first demo. It's looking at hooking up a UI tile, but this time to some sort of native lighting. So we've got a system here where, and the example we decided to give was a bathroom system. So in the UK, I think in the US as well, you call it an extract fan, but I did seek to try and find out what people would call this. And in the US, my colleagues informed me that you guys call this the fart fan. So this is the fart fan demo. So the scenario is just that we have some native lighting. So we've got some. So we've got some native lighting. We've got it doesn't matter what it is, but it happens on this particular occasion to be some DALI lighting connected to our system, and we've got an extract fan that we want to run on. We want to turn it on. We want to turn on when the lighting comes on in the space, and we also want it to run on for an extended time after the lighting in the room is turned off. So, so we've added in one of our UI tiles, which is a simple switch tile. These switch tiles all have a similar user interface, but there's a whole variety of them to turn off all sorts of different things. The sprinkler switch that Durgesh showed you is one of those. Now, in addition to just a simple on and off, there are a number of configurable buttons that you can add where you have a time delayed off. You can do up to a 2-hour time delay. So obviously, if the fire fan needs to go on for a couple of hours, things are going wrong, but the sprinklers might do, I guess. So those are all configured within the settings area of our driver, and you can add or hide those different buttons in there. So at the moment, the Crestron lighting scenes in the space don't expose events. So we can't trigger directly off events at the moment. I know it's something that is coming, that we'll be able to do that directly, but for the moment, the way around that is to create some quick actions for the space. So in this space here, I've got a bathroom lights on, a bathroom lights off quick action, and I've also got some whole house actions for all lights on and all lights off. So with these, what we're going to do is we're going to use those quick actions to turn the lights on in the room, to turn our fan UI tile on, which in turn is going to turn on some native hardware, which will be connected to our actual, to our fan unit. So the fan's currently off. When I hit the quick action, that's going to turn our lights on in the room, and it's going to turn our fan on as well. When I go to turn those bathroom lights off with the quick action, it's going to set up, I've set it up in the back end to do a 6-minute timer that's going to run. So in the back end, in the setup app here, we're in the bathroom, and we've got a couple of different elements in here. We've got an extract fan, which is a relay control device, a really similar setup to what Durga showed you with the sprinkler. We've got the bathroom extract, which is a lighting control UI tile. So if I go into the events and actions settings for this, in the bathroom, I've got both of those events. I've also added in a plate to the system so that I can do that same functionality using the light switch in the room. So off my quick actions, I've got a sequence recalled where I'm turning the bathroom lighting scene on, and then I'm also switching, sorry, I'll do the on first, it's more obvious like that. So I'm switching the bathroom lights on. When I'm doing that, I'm cancelling any running timer, and then I'm switching on the extract fan, which is our desired functionality. On the other side, when the bathroom lights are turned off, I'm going to switch off the lights, but I'm also going to trigger a switch on with function delay. So this delay is configurable. So if I want to change that to 10 minutes, I can change that to a 10-minute delay for that fan to run on. And then the last thing we need to do is we also need to hook up, as I say, in this situation, we're going to use native hardware. So the fan is going to be controlled by a relay. So on the actual UI tile itself, again, this UI tile exposes some events. It exposes a switched on event and a switched off event. And in this particular one, we have that tied up to the unit that we have named as extract fan, which is tied up in this particular instance just to a relay on the back of a processor for this particular system. Oops. So that relay is located in the bathroom, and the extract fan that I showed you added into the room. So in this occasion, the question Oliver raised it earlier on that Matt was talking about on one of our previous calls around the latching and unlatching. So in this particular occasion, just let me show you in the room, this extract fan relay controlled device is set up as a latched relay on one of the MC4s in the room, in the space. So that's just, again, a very quick demo, but showing you that use case and that scenario of how we connect up native hardware, both lighting and some native relays, to a UI tile within Crestron Home. As I say, that will be even easier once lighting events are exposed as well. So that's going to be a real improvement. So we'll be able to clean up the user interface even more and get rid of some of those get some of those quick actions out of the flow as well, which will make everything a lot more maintainable. So I've got next in my, how are we doing? 10 minutes to go. So I'm going to go back to the push notifications, but I'm just going to maximize up our presentation and talk through a couple of the boring bits in before I do that push notification. So as I mentioned, it does mean that you've got somebody else involved in the equation. So we, as all driver developers need to, we're going to provide support for our drivers. If things go wrong, both if things go wrong and if things don't go wrong as well. We provide support in terms of a wealth of documentation, video materials. I know Oliver does as well in terms of his documentation for all his drivers, because we want to give you all the tools that you need to be successful with them and to have the least pain possible in terms of getting those onto systems. There are also, through the lifetime of your Crestron Home systems, things need to be maintained. You know, it's particularly there are some challenges around upgrading drivers, for example, and we certainly see that as one of the things that, as a driver developer, we need to provide you as good a tools as possible for doing those things like driver upgrades. So we've got a ticket-based system for support. We also have some chargeable support options. So if you want us to install some Crestron Home drivers, and there might be occasions where you need help with that setup, and those things are available as well. As I mentioned, all of our drivers currently in our catalog all require a license. They all will also work for a 30-minute period at first install without a license, so that you can just download a driver from the using the quickest and easiest way of downloading a driver for demo is to use the setup app. All of our drivers are listed currently on the Crestron Home portal, so they do all pull straight into the setup app. So that's the quickest way if you just want to stick a tile onto a device to show a customer what you're doing with it, and that will run for half an hour without any setup. You can download a driver from our site, but the demo licenses that come down from our site don't come with any license keys at all. They're just the same 30-minute license that you will get via the portal. Or the third option is you can go to drivers.crestron.io and download it from there and then sideload it. But as I say, the most quick and efficient way to do it is via the setup app. In the flow for the setup app, I just quickly wanted to show you. So if I were to go into drivers and into the UI tiles, just because I know I can quickly find a driver, during the flow for that, at this setup page, we've got a couple of, this is one of these UI tiles, so it doesn't have anything in terms of setup in here except a space to put in your license key, but we do have some T's and C's, and we also have a link. So this link, when you download the driver, should you decide that you want to put it onto the system, will take you straight off to our website where you can go and purchase that license for that particular driver. So that's just worth demonstrating to you there. If you have the requirement for one of those drivers, once you've purchased the license for it, you can use multiple of the same type of driver on that single site, and the licenses are based on a MAC address and tied to that system processor. So nothing more, I think, to say on that, and I think both of those we've got reasonably kind of feature parity with the way Oliver does things, although there's some slight differences.
We're almost the same. Yeah, I mean, I think we have a default of an hour, which I know somebody's just asked you about, Neil, on the chat.
Okay.
Our trial is an hour. Support, we've got support@automation.com, and we'll jump on things as quickly as we possibly can. We have had some issues over certain manufacturers of AV switcher that we've had to leap on fairly quickly, and I must admit we had some incredible support from Crestron as well, in terms of getting a problem resolved with a driver type. There was a little bug that we stumbled across, and the guys at Crestron found a workaround so that we were able to get a site up and running via serial rather than IP, which was the only way that their legacy AV switcher would work. So we can get things resolved fairly quickly, even if problems do crop up.
So yeah, I didn't mention there, although I've put it in the slide around TrueBlue. We were discussing with my kind of team internally about this support ticket. So we have our own ticketing system, so we're certainly happy for you to reach out to us for support. We will help you identify where your problems lies, be that with connection to third-party device, be it something that we need to fix in our world, and be that something that's going on with your Crestron system. And we will work together with TrueBlue. Sometimes they'll bring something to our attention, sometimes we'll bring something to their attention, and you guys know that kind of flow reasonably well. I was just seeing if there was that. I can't quite see that question just now. I'll come back to it in a moment. So last quick demo is around our Crestron Home CH push driver, as we've called it. So we've released a driver which is a notification driver, a push notification driver. We've got plans to release another couple of these, which will give some other options to you. But for the moment, the first one we released is called CH Push, and it gives you a way of getting notifications from your Crestron Home system to your mobile devices, be those iOS or Android. There is also Windows desktop client if you really want to, but I'm get enough notifications on my desktop already. So the main target is those things. Now, the system we chose to go with is a system called Pushover. It's a service that their commercial model and the way that they work is that they fund their service based on the small application that you put on your mobile device, and they charge $5 per device to put that application on their device. Other than that, their service is free, limited to 7,500 messages a month. So in terms of our kind of design of this product and how we anticipate it working, for a household system with between 4 and 6 users, 7,500 messages a month seems to be a reasonably good number. If something's going badly wrong, if I'm getting told about things more than that. I thought there was an interesting, so let me show you through it first of all. So in this system here, we've added it as a user-facing tile because again, we have designed this with a user-facing element and with a setup element. So if I go into the setup element first, we've got some setup of the application where we can set up the names of the different users of the system. So we can set up the name of the householders that are going to subscribe to different notifications on the system. And then we enter a unique key, which comes from our Pushover account per user. Now that unique key ties up to the application that's on your iOS or mobile device. So the other portion of setup is we also have an application key. So familiar with authentication of applications for Google Mail and for all sorts of things. In terms of the Pushover application, they've got quite a nice little system that's fully documented in our documentation, where the app that we created as a developer, you can simply, once you're logged into Pushover, you can follow the hyperlink in our documentation, and that will create an app for you. It'll clone the app that we created, which means that you'll get all the configuration just ready to go. So you can follow our documentation, add your Pushover application key, and that gets stored in the system. And we've got a little method of sending a test notification, and it sends a test notification to any of the users that have a notification key entered in the system. We also have some feedback there showing how many messages are remaining within those 7,500 free messages. There are paid plans and things like that, which the app will support as well, but we're generally anticipating it to be for that. So we've put some different kind of use case applications in there. This is the front-facing part of the application, where the users themselves can decide whether they want to be notified about the certain thing that we've set up. So we've set up a doorbell notification, a temperature alert, and a fridge alert on this particular one. We're not using the other ones, so we've got them disabled. So we can enable and disable notifications globally per alert, but we can also set them up so that they go per user. So I might want to tell my wife and also myself that the doorbell's rung, but I might not want to tell her something else that's in there. So the messages themselves can be spelt wrong. So the messages themselves, we can send a short message, a title, a message, and we can also send a link through. So this one that I've got set up here is I've just set up to be that doorbell message for purposes of demonstration. And obviously, what's triggering these actual alerts are events and actions, as we've seen before. So this can be tied up to a quick action based on a doorbell press, somebody pressing that 2N button on their front panel. All of these things are possible. So in this particular example, I have set up a quick action just so we can do that demonstration. And I'm actually, so we have an alert here, and we can just select one of our alerts 1 through 5 that we want to trigger with that action. So once those alerts are set up, users themselves can enable and disable which ones they want to send, but also they can, there's also some quite nice tools within the application itself around, there's some quite nice tools in the application itself around disabling notifications and having hours of the day whereby you want notifications to be on. And the most difficult bit of this demonstration is going to be the iOS mirroring, because it just never works. Although we managed to make it work on the last 2 demos, didn't we, Oliver? So we shall try and see if the iPhone mirroring will work again, just so I can show you this demo properly. Otherwise, we'll have to go old school, and I'll just show you on the camera. We're gonna do that. So if I so I've got my iOS phone with the pushover notification on here, and the notification is gonna pop into my device. There it is. If I click on that notification, it's gonna be much better in the emulator. So difficult to see on the camera. I shall try and show you in a moment on the emulator, but I've got a contextual logo there, the Crestron Home logo. I can click on the actual notification, and then I can click on the link I've put in that notification, and that's going to take me into my Crestron Home app, where I've got my 2N doorbell live on the table behind me. So that notification flow, try to give you a little bit of a demonstration of the sort of thing you might be able to use that for. I see why it's not working. That's a total air gap error. That was the wrong USB cable. So yeah, I'll show you that properly in a second. So there we go. You can see we've gone right into the camera notification there. So if I just show you the notification that came in, you can see the app setup that's in there is the app setup that is in there is the Crestron Home app that we've set up that can just be cloned for you to use on your own systems. And the app link that's in there just takes us straight through to our Crestron Home setup app. So that's what we have for you in terms of demonstrations. I just wanted to mention one last thing on the notifications app. There was some good comments, and I'm sure the Crestron Home guys all picked up on them. There was somebody said, I hope that just because the developers developed a notification app, Crestron won't stop the kind of roadmap to getting Crestron Home notifications. And I read that and I thought, well, yeah, I kind of agree, and I don't think they will, to be honest. And I'm sure it is in the roadmap that Crestron Home will get native notifications at some point. And there's a few of these things where I don't see one as competing against the other. I see them as being complementary things. And I still see that there might be a role for certain notification apps where you want to do things out with the whole control system. You might not want to give full control of the home system via the Crestron Home app to, for example, a housekeeping employee or somebody. You might want to just send them a notification. So hopefully what we're providing is a catalog of different tools that will be applicable to different situations and will complement the ongoing development of the Crestron Home platform.
And I think just to reassure everybody that all of these comments that are coming in saying wouldn't it be great if we had this, that, and the other, all of those things, well, you can bet that we are passing a lot of that stuff up to Crestron. We speak to Jason quite often and the developers and things like that. We are constantly banging on the door asking for an extra bit of functionality here, there, things like that color wheel that got mentioned, you know, that those sorts of things would be absolutely fantastic. So we are pushing for things like that as well, because obviously the more tools that we've got to play with, the more functionality we can add, the better things become. So yeah, that's in everybody's interest. And that was Mike sneezing in the background.
So yeah, I'm just going to point out that the pin lock isn't broken. It's just run out of its licensing time at the moment, and that's what a driver looks like when it's run out of licensing at the moment. So I don't know if you managed to have a look at the questions, Oliver. We've kept everyone on for an hour, so thank you very much all for coming. We will be happy to stay on for a little bit longer and try and cover off any questions. But if you have to get off to the next thing on your agenda, then thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us this afternoon. You can contact us both via social media or via our websites, where there's contact details on there. But yeah, any other questions? I've kind of lost track of the questions for the last little while. Anything else we need to? Could you share your future releases? I think we've talked to. How long have you got? We've got a list of things. Some of them are in the idea stage. Some of them are in the kind of proof of concept stage. I have thought about it. It's always a bit dangerous as soon as you share an idea because somebody wants it yesterday. That would be right, wouldn't it be, Oliver?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we're both pretty good at sharing things once they're in development. I think we're generally quite good at telling people what's actually going on in development.
You wouldn't believe the number of requests that we get as well. I mean, I think Neil's probably the same as us, but you know, I get probably 3 or 4 a day of people saying, I've got this bit of kit, can you write a driver for it? Unfortunately, a lot of those things are kind of, I mean, there's one I think that we're looking at the moment, which is a sort of shade controller, but it's a kind of PCB that's kind of somebody knocked together and it's got a little protocol. There probably isn't a viable case for us writing a driver for that because we'd never see another one again. So we do have to be a little bit careful about what we pick and choose. Obviously for Neil and I, because we're selling drivers on a sort of per use basis, the hope for us is that, you know, that we're going to go for drivers that are going to sell well. So that's our kind of primary license, sort of our motivation, I guess. But yeah, so just we have to juggle what we can and can't take on. Some drivers are really difficult to do as well, you know, for technical reasons. So they're all considerations.
So just going through a couple of other questions. There's one specific to the notifications from Lucas. He was asking why. So can the notification alert the user if a security system is tripped? So it can notify based on anything that you can trigger an action from. So if Oliver's security system driver, that's going to come out in a little while, gives you those events, then by all means you can tie those up to an alert. So if any security system driver provides those events, then yes, you can tie them up to an alert.
I mean, that's actually a good point. That the event model within Crestron Home is great. It allows sort of binary events to be hooked up together, which is why the gate control and things like that and the sprinklers are working. There are some limitations to it as well, though. So you know, it all depends on what a driver type exposes in terms of the events it can do. So in terms of the security system, I must admit, I'm not sure off the top of my head what events you get out of that one. Platform devices at the moment, we are a bit limited on events, but I think that's an architectural thing that I'm guessing is being worked on. Whereas extension devices have really good support for actions and events. So my understanding is that support will become ubiquitous across all of the driver types. So
yes,
you know,
I maybe answered a question slightly incorrectly on that earlier on, because my knowledge is that it is certainly designed to be that we can give those tools on all types of drivers, but there might be a difficulty on security just right at the moment. But there was another question around, I thought a good question that was raised around Yale Infinet. Door lock, and so the question raised is that Crestron currently offer the Yale Infinet. Well, I don't think they still do, or they're on their way out, I believe, unfortunately. But it's one that I've been asked about a few times. The second half of the question says, is there a way a driver can be written for door lock management? Door lock management is definitely something we've considered, a sort of access management module. We've spoken to a few different integrators about different requirements they'd have for that. So if you have specific use cases for that, I'd be happy to hear from you with them so that we can build the right thing there. The actual Yale Infinet, getting access to that is harder. And to be honest, I don't have a good lock manufacturer that I have just ready to go because of those technical challenges at the moment. licenses, our license is perpetual or subscription. So everything currently in our catalog is a perpetual license. It's a lifetime license. We do have a couple of modules that are in the pipeline which will be a subscription based license. I mentioned we're going to do some other notification drivers. Now some of those have some ongoing costs associated with them, so we do have some subscriptions, but for the majority they would be perpetual licenses. And there was another one about what happens if a faulty processor is replaced with a new one. So there's two slightly different things, but on both systems there is a roadmap, a kind of route to that. So with our licensing activation and deactivation works with our licensing server, and it's kind of a self-serving process. If you need to move a license from one processor to another processor for whatever reason, that's possible. The restriction is just you can't run them on two processors at the same time. So you can self-serve, you can go to the My Account section on the Lighting Control website, and you can deactivate a license from a faulty processor so that you can reactivate it on a new one. If you need assistance with that, obviously we can jump in and assist you through our support channels.
Neil, there was a question asking why there was only 5 alerts for the pushover.
Yeah, I saw that and I meant to address it. So yeah, because I thought that was a good number. No other great reason there. Partially because there's a little bit of UI restrictions, which means we can't make that totally dynamic. So there is a little bit of a cost in development time to making. It's not to do with the amount of alerts, but to do with the UI, where we actually have to build some of that UI around 5 buttons, and we'd have to build 10 of them. It's not, that little bit isn't entirely dynamic. Having said that, the license covers you for more than one alert. So you could have an alert system for family, and you could have an alert system for, or you could have an alert system for the kids, and you could have one for the grown-ups, so you get 10. If you've got a particular use case and you twist our arm, maybe we can make more alerts for you on that than the 5. What we have to date is on problem stage. So there's a good question. The Yitzi Novak mentioned a problem. The extensions don't display like a native lock. So watch this space on that one. So there are some changes coming to the SDK and to Crestron Home, where we'll be able to give extension devices some extra bells and whistles, which will mean we will be able to get them into those places that you're talking about, things like the home access tile on the front page. We will be able to make them present a little bit more natively. So yeah, watch this space on that one. Anything else I've missed? Don't think so. So we'll probably call it to a close, Oliver. Any other? Oh, so I totally missed this. So if anyone's, I'll follow up. We'll do this in the follow-up email as well. So demo licenses, we both make a system of purchasing demo licenses for your showroom systems. So we've got a little form on the support page of our website where you can just enter some details. We ask you to enter the MAC address of your home processor, of your Crestron home processor that you're going to use for your showroom system, and we will issue you a company coupon that you can use at the checkout, and that will give you a 50% discount on a limited number of drivers that you can use for demo systems. If you need more than that limited number, come back and ask us. If it's not unreasonable, we'll try our best to entertain it.
You've probably gathered we're less sophisticated than Neil's operation, so ours is more ask us and we will provide you with a key for showroom licenses and things like that. It's the same 50% discount though.
So I think I'll just say thank you very much for taking the time out to chat with us. Looking forward to, I guess we'll see many of you at Crestron Masters next week, or certainly some of you at Crestron Masters next week. So it will be lots and lots of these video calls and chat windows to be dealing with. I'm glad I'm not the one responding to quite a few of those chats, although I've got one of them to do. So thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. Will we do another one of these at some point, Oliver? Never say never, but not tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah, it's one of those. Isn't it?
So yeah, we'll maybe do another of these later in the year when we've got a few more things out to show to you. As I say, if you want to contact us with questions and follow up, please do follow up to the response. We'll get the video sent out once I have got that all done in the next couple of days. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.